I'd like to welcome the Honourable Vic Fedeli, a lifelong entrepreneur serving the Ontario government as Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade. His business experience led his firm Fedeli Corporation to be ranked in the top 50 best places to work in Canada in 1989. It also served him well when elected to 2 terms as Mayor of North Bay. In 2011, Minister Fedeli was elected to the Ontario Legislature and is now serving his 4th term as MPP for Nipissing. He's married to local humor writer Patty and is often seen in one of his trademark yellow ties, which Mr. Fedeli, you're not wearing today, but as you said, you wear it quite often. So I think you're known for that now.
I wear a yellow tie every day, and here you go for this interview. I thought, I'm going to go on casual today. I'm going to show Alan the casual Vic today.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you again for taking the time and speaking to us about our province and the growth in our province. I know many investors listening to our show, watching our show, would love to hear how our province is doing. You know, we're hearing a lot of mixed information, getting some mixed signals. So thought it'd be a great time to have you on the show. And I guess we'll start with kind of a general question. You know, we often hear your announcements regarding investments in manufacturing, the auto sector, overall spend on expanding and growing the economy. We also hear about job creation programs. However, at the same time, we're also seeing that our economy is slowing really right across the country. And at the very least, you know, there's people fearing that we could be moving into a mild recession. So with all that in mind and all these mixed signals, how would you categorize the strength of the provincial economy at this time?
Well, thanks, Alan. I appreciate exactly the commentary that you made. And there are a lot of mixed signals out there. But let me be very clear about Ontario. We are, from a business perspective, I mean, both the Premier and I are lifelong entrepreneurs. We basically never work for anyone else other than ourselves and now the government and the people of Ontario. I would tell you that our economy is just on fire here. We are firing on all cylinders. Last year, I did maybe 15 countries around the world bringing in business. Like, we've landed in the last 3 years, $28 billion in brand new EV. We were never in the EV business before. About $3 billion in life sciences, tens of billions in tech. So in those countries that we visited and brought this business to us from, they said 2 things. All, for the most part, were, I would say, unprompted, Alan. They said, in this really tumultuous world, this looming recession, talk of recession, the COVID, we're over COVID, we're not really over COVID, not everybody's back, Russia's illegal war in Ukraine, this is before Israel now, we did not travel in November, December, the whole thought about China and supply chains, in all of that turmoil, they look across the ocean and they see this beacon of hope, this beacon of light, and that's Ontario. And one by one by one, they land here, like LG Energy with a $5 billion plant, Volkswagen with a $7 billion plant, and others. So I would say this targeted and strategic approach that we've taken to business, running the economic development in a business-like way, has just changed the narrative. We reduced the cost of doing business. We can talk about that more later. But there's basically 700,000 people more working today in Ontario than the day we got elected. So there's a couple of other really interesting stats. I'll just throw 2 more if you don't mind. Last year, we saw about 120,000 jobs created in Ontario, 1 year alone. This is an interesting stat that was ratified this morning by both the U.S. Trade Department and Stats Canada. They both take a month to ratify their numbers. As of, for the entire year last year, all of 2023, Ontario created more manufacturing jobs than all 50 US states combined.
Wow.
That's the message people need to know. That's what we say. That's what we're talking about when we say Ontario is on fire.
That's unbelievable. I don't think I didn't know that stat, and I'm sure many others wouldn't know that's that either.
Yeah.
But what would you say would be, I guess, the selling feature, right? What are businesses telling you
Yeah.
as to why they're coming here? What would be the number one reason why they open up a plant or set up shop in Ontario?
So again, in those 15 countries where we heard from the governments and the businesses, they told us they saw this beacon of hope in Ontario because they see us as stable, reliable, dependable. They almost in a boring way that we're just they can rely on us. Um, and secondly, they said we're safe. And so you take that as your reason to start looking at Ontario, and then they find out the jewel. It's our talent. It's all about our talent. We have 65,000 STEM grads every year. We have about 74% of our adult employees have a post-secondary education. We're one of the most educated workforces in the world. One of the messages I bring all the time to manufacturers is think about Toyota in Ontario. Ontario's Toyota was named the best auto plant in the world. Not the best Toyota plant, the best auto plant. Think of how many thousands of auto plants there are. We have the number one auto plant here in Ontario. That tells you we know how to make things. Our people are what make our companies. That's
That's
really what it's
incredible.
all about. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the people for sure.
yeah,
You hear that a lot. Diversified, great workers.
yeah,
Manufacturing is what we
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Just maybe a more difficult question I would ask would be, what are some of the issues that companies are telling you? So for those that don't come here, that you go and meet and say, come on and open up in Ontario,
Yeah.
and they kind of tell you, well, reasons why they decide not to come here. And what are some of those reasons? And what would you say would be the number one thing if you could change that you would change so that we could attract even more business to our province?
So we have a lot of really big advantages in cutting the red tape that we've done over the last 5 years. And so what I would say would be we need to do more. We need to continue to cut the red tape for these businesses. I think that's a really important piece where we need to continue making sure that we're educating our graduates in the fields that are going to be needed, making sure we're training our employees with the information that they need. And that's why I think about things like we have 85,000 AI workers in Ontario today. That's a remarkable statistic. So we need to continue working on the reduction of costs. When we first got elected, we heard loud and clear from business community, the Fords, GMs, Stellantises of the world, that our cost of doing business was getting to be too high in Ontario. And we immediately began to reduce the cost of business. I'll give you a couple of quick for instances. WSIB, workplace compensation. We had so much cash that we were drawing from businesses and stashing to make sure we had the money for the benefits, but it was far more than was legally required, far more than would be morally required. So we cut the cost of doing business by of WSIB by 50%. Alan, that's $2.5 billion reduction just in WSIB payments. Then we put in an accelerated capital cost allowance that allows businesses to write off their costs in year. And that was $1 billion savings. Then we lowered the cost of industrial and commercial hydro by 15%. That's $1.3 billion. And the list goes on and on and on. And I would say to you, we need to keep adding to that list of where we can save businesses additional dollars. I think that's what we need to just keep doing. Keep doing what we're doing, to be honest. It's working.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Obviously, cutting costs for businesses is obviously very enticing, right? And
Yeah.
so setting up shop here and doing it at a cheaper than elsewhere, obviously is a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Leads me to my next question. As Minister of Economic Development, are there certain industries or sectors of the economy that you're focusing on with respect to bringing companies to Ontario to grow the economy. We've seen, as you mentioned already, a lot of announcements in the EV space. But are there certain sectors of the market that you're more focused on to try and maybe diversify a little more the economy of the province?
Excellent question. So we set up our investment agency. It's called Invest Ontario, and that is to help fund and to help do the due diligence for us on the various sectors. And they are not quite restricted, but focused purely on advanced manufacturing, tech, and life sciences. Those are the three areas that we excel in Ontario. And so we're going to fish where the fish are. And so we're working very diligently. We saw big investments in, again, EV, we saw that. Just think about the EV and what being proactive does. In 2019, Reuters announced that there would be $300 billion worldwide spent on the development of EVs, zero coming to Canada. So that's where the Premier said, we've got to kick it in gear. And that's when we reduced the cost of doing business, as I said, with the WSIB. That number, by the way, is $8 billion annual savings to business. That's a real number. And so just last year, Bloomberg announced that Ontario is the number 2 in the global supply chain of EVs. Imagine going from zero investment to number 2 in the world, only after China in EVs, number 1 in North America. So that's a strength, but that's going to come to an end. All the EV companies this year will have a place around the world. They're going to be settled in. If they're not settled by this year, they shouldn't be in the business. So that's going to move, and we're going to start doubling down on life sciences. We put a life sciences council in place. We have a life sciences fund. We've developed a life sciences strategy.
Yeah, no, EVs is obviously something that top of mind really for everybody. We're talking on another show about EVs, and then the cost, right? The cost of making electric vehicles to the cost for these automotive companies to be profitable. It's difficult. A lot of these automotive companies have turned to hybrids, and they've kind of slowed down the manufacturing of EVs. Have you seen that slowdown? Has that affected the business?
Not here in Ontario. We only at the moment make the Bright Drop electric vehicle, which is General Motors' delivery vehicle. It's a delivery van for FedEx. And so right now, that's the only one coming off the assembly line. Brampton, they've now are in the process of converting the entire Brampton facility from internal combustion engine, from ICE to EV. 2026, Ford will then convert their entire facility to EV. So in the meantime, we're pumping them out. I mean, Ontario is the number 2 automaker in North America. So it's a position we cherish. But think about this as well. We're also, with 414,000 employees plus, we're also the number 2 tech cluster in North America. This is a spectacular piece. We are going to overtake Silicon Valley as the number 1 tech cluster.
Wow, that would be unbelievable. Obviously, Silicon Valley known for tech. That's what they're known for. So when I talk to the Premier, the Finance Minister, and now yourself, always the topic. When I tell people I'm doing this interview, 2 things always seem to come up, and that is higher taxes and higher interest rates. Inflation is getting a little bit better, but for now, the higher taxes, higher interest rates. Is this, or has higher taxes, we're I think the 4th highest for taxes jurisdiction in North America. So have the higher taxes, the higher interest rates, has it made it more difficult to improve the economy in Ontario?
When you look at the taxes, part of what we did when we got elected was begin to reduce that. Again, we put an accelerated capital write-off, so you can write off your equipment in year. That's $1 billion tax savings. We did not go ahead with the previous Liberal government's tax increase that was planned for January 19th. $465 million was to kick in. Not only did we not do that, we have not changed or increased any taxes since we've been elected, only rolled them back. So we put in a 10% manufacturing tax credit in the last budget. Everything we've done is to roll back taxes, reduce taxes, no increases whatsoever. Your hunting and fishing license didn't even go up. I mean, we are pushing hard at reducing the cost. And then we've put in sort of family friendly and business friendly and farm friendly things like the 10 cent a liter gas tax reduction. So we're all about reducing. We're going the other way on the taxes. And so that has helped us when the business community around the world looks at Ontario and sees, okay, that's the stability, that's the credibility we want in a government, is that they understand lower taxes equals better business. So I got to put a cherry on top on this one. So here we are. We've pulled on every government lever possible to lower the cost of doing business. So we've reduced our own revenue by $8 billion a year. And what did that do? Put 700,000 people to work. We saw billions, tens of billions of investment come in. But here's the really interesting one. The day we got elected, our revenue in Ontario was 154 billion. So we reduce our revenue and let business grow. Today, 5 years later, our revenue is 204 billion. So our revenue increased by 33% in 5 years. Lower taxes equals higher revenue. That's the formula.
And that's amazing. And you hear often that government wants to raise taxes because they need to cover what they're spending. And as the Premier said when he was on the show, governments don't have an income problem, they have a spend problem. And so you reduce the tax, you grow the business. It's definitely a recipe for success for sure. You bring up the jobs a few times, and I thought we would end our interview with a couple of questions on that, the jobs growth. And so when you look back to April 2023, the unemployment rate was around 4.9%, just under 5%. Today, the last number we have, which was December of last year, it's up over 6%. Where do you think the jobs number is going to kind of level off? Do you foresee it getting back up to over 7%, which has been the average, I guess, for many years? Obviously, we're creating a lot of jobs. We're bringing a lot of new businesses to Ontario, as you mentioned. Where do you see jobs growth going in the near term and I guess in the future?
Well, we continue to bring companies here. We continue to land companies. Volkswagen will have 3,000 new employees at the plant. The Nexstar plant in Windsor will have 2,500 new employees. So we're going to continue to bring the jobs in. The business community has reacted to our lower cost regimen by hiring almost 700,000 people, but we still have about 380,000 unfilled jobs in Ontario. So that's the real push. That's why we're spending so many billions on skills development and skills training. We know that we need more immigration. We brought in 500,000 immigrants into Ontario last year to help fill these jobs as well. These are permanent residents coming to this land of opportunity in Ontario. We expect more than 500,000 this year. So once we start to level out, we'll have a better idea. But the employment number, no matter where it is always a technical number. We just know we have 380,000 unfilled jobs in Ontario, and we're training like heck to fill those jobs.
To fill them, yeah. So immigration, I guess, is playing a role to fill a lot of these jobs. I guess my last question, and it pertains, I guess, a bit to the U.S. And you probably saw the numbers out of the U.S. today, jobs data. They grew over 350,000 jobs, well above what they were anticipating. Their GDP numbers look to be pretty good. You know, we're looking, some are calling for a 3-4% GDP number for the first quarter. How does that play out for us here in Ontario? Obviously, we know that most of the things that we pull out of the ground and build end up going down to the US, number one trading partner. So to see their growth in jobs, 353,000 this morning, to see their GDP, to see their consumers still continue to spend and buy product, that can only be good for us here in Ontario, can it?
Yeah, you know, the expression when the US sneezes, we catch a cold, but when they grow, we also grow with them. They are, as you said, our number one trading partner. It's interesting. I just got home from a trade mission to Mexico last night. And this was a big topic because Mexico and Ontario were each other's third largest trading partner. Everything that happens in the States affects us both. So when we see the kind of job numbers they had today, that's very encouraging. Mexico is switched with China, that Mexico is now the US's single largest trading partner at 800 billion a year, followed by China. Number three trading partner to the US, province of Ontario, $460 billion in two-way trade. We are the US's third largest trading partner. People would not know that at all. There's 9 million Americans that wake up every morning just to make products to ship to us. That's how reliant we are on each other. So when you've got good growth in the States, this is also very good news for us here in Ontario, and vice versa.
Yeah, for sure. I think the US, a lot of people were waiting for the recession that I guess never happened. And they seem to be in many areas re-accelerating, which is why I guess Bank of Canada, or in this case, the Federal Reserve, are a little bit concerned to see re-acceleration, obviously from an inflation standpoint. But I guess from all of us, we want to see the economic development. We want to see the growth. So it's great to hear that Ontario is doing as well as it has. I want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to join us, Minister Fedeli. Thank you so much for giving us some, I guess, fantastic information, staggering information that many of us wouldn't even know how well our province is doing at this time. It's just unbelievable to hear how large these numbers are getting. And as you mentioned, they're only getting better going forward. So thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
It's been all my pleasure, Alan, and a really great opportunity to share some of those remarkable numbers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.